Hello, welcome you all to Team 2. Today is the 12th meetup of Team 2. What is Team 2? We all know communication and leadership are the key skills for job in the corporate world. The objective of Team 2 is to promote communication, collaboration, public speaking, social and leadership skills. Why Team 2? Through Team 2, we're connecting new generation. Team 2 is for collaboration. There are lots of experience within the group itself for higher studies or jobs. You can get guidance. People within the community can help each other. Team 2 is for communication. We have a planned approach for communication and skill development with projects. Team 2 is for leadership. We're interacting with leaders as guest speakers to our session and provide a chance for discussing with them. So set aside an hour every weekend for self-development. We have two streams at present, technology stream and communication stream. So please join and grow with us. Today we have a guest speaker, Mr. Sriram Kumar. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So, thank you for the introduction. So,
one second,
I'll introduce the guest speaker.
okay.
It is a great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Sriram Kumar. Mr. Ram is the General Manager for VISHWA Transcriptions Private Limited and PENNHEALTH Informatics. He has been in the healthcare industry for more than 20 years, serving in various designations for Heartland, Healthcare, and Nuance. He has been a part of the hospitality industry and had worked for Holiday Inn, ITC, Manipal, and Mahindra Groups in the past. Today, he is going to talk about healthcare documentation and related job opportunities. Sir, we are honored to have you here with us. Over to you.
Thank you, Divya. Dia. Thank you, Dia, for the wonderful introduction. So, like Dia mentioned, we are going to talk about the different career opportunities in the healthcare documentation industry. So, before we get into the details of the healthcare documentation and what it actually entails and what is required in order to get into the industry, I would just like to give a kind of an overview of where we stand today. As you know, healthcare is a very big business, and it's like billions of dollars of transactions. And just to give you an idea, in the US, which is the largest economy right now in the world, it's like something like $3.2 trillion worth. Okay, it's huge. It's almost like the entire GDP, India's GDP. Now, before we move on, I would just like to kind of give into what I am doing basically. Of course, you've already been introduced. Okay, so this is me. So, I was introduced. I'm the general manager for VISHWA Transcriptions and PENNHEALTH Informatics. Now, VISHWA Transcriptions is basically it's our India branch where all the employees who are enrolled with VISHWA Transcriptions basically work out of India, and those that are engaged with PENNHEALTH Informatics, they're basically engaged and work from the US soil. So basically most of the business that we do is in the US. Okay, so now like I was saying, it's very big business, right? And most of the business right now with regard to healthcare documentation particularly, it comes from US. It is not only because of the size of the business, but also the legalities, right? So US is it has a very evolved legal requirements, and therefore the documentation comes into play. Now, as you can just see here, the percentage of economy-wise spending in the US, compared to other developed nations like France, Germany, Canada, UK, etc. You can see how much of additional spending goes in the US. No, it's like 17.7% of their economy. So it's huge. The healthcare is a lot of money. And as we all know, wherever there is a lot of money involved, okay, and it's not like, it's logical that wherever there's a lot of money involved, there's a lot of chance of corruption, malpractice, manipulation, right? So giving you a parallel example, if you look at, you can say, to give an analogy, let's say Bollywood, okay? Bollywood, there's big money. So obviously there is a lot of, some mafia that might be involved. There are chances that, even like you have cricket, and some time back we had that match fixing stuff. So all this kind of malpractices creep in whenever there is, a lot of money involved. Okay, so that's why it's very important that when such a lot of big money is involved, that there is proper healthcare documentation in order to prevent or minimize the malpractices. So, like I was just giving you an example from cricket also. Like in cricket, you have you have 11 players, right? And do all the 11 players do the same thing? No, they don't. Some are like specialized in batting, some in, let's say, bowling, fielding, etc. The different aspects, right, of the same game. So any process is like that. Now, same here. When it comes to healthcare documentation, you have different processes. Okay, uh, for us, for a layperson, it's just like, you go to, let's say, you go to a doctor, and the doctor sees you, and you pay the bill, or you claim insurance, right? It's as simple as that. But what happens is, particularly in places like US, where the insurance is very, very extensive. So almost like, even if people get some cough, cold, go to the doctor, they claim insurance. It's not like here. So that's why it's very important that, and insurance, it's they insist on documenting everything, because like I said, there's a lot of chances of malpractice that could happen when there's so much of money involved. So there are different stages of documentation. There are different processes. Like it begins from the submission of claim. For example, if a patient goes to a doctor, and due to whatever XYZ problems, and that is documented, and there that documentation is done. Maybe the process is called medical transcription, where the doctor actually dictates, okay, and that is recorded, and then someone has to process it in a particular format. So things like medical transcription, scribing, all this come in. Then what happens is, there is something called coding, which goes in, where each diagnosis is coded. There is a certain code. So we'll discuss that in detail a little later. So right now, that's part of claims management, which is somewhere here. And basically, we are going to focus on these two aspects in this, because there's a lot of different processes, and each process has different activities. So what we are going to basically focus on is these two. It has the documentation is very important in another sense, where you need to collect data, right, for analysis. Like, for example, now there are a lot of the recent example I can give you is like, we have this COVID, right? So in COVID, there is a lot of debate on what vaccine, how, and whether you should take it, what is the number of days or months or weeks that need to be spaced out between the first dose and the second dose, right? And also a lot of people are little, apprehensive because we don't know what is the long-term effects and stuff like that. So why is it so? Because the vaccines were developed for COVID. Most of them are like they were done in a kind of a hurry. So we don't have enough data, right? And that's where data is increasingly, I think, across all industries now, not only healthcare. Across all industries, data is playing a very, very important role. And so therefore healthcare documentation also is useful in analyzing and preparing data, right? First you need to collect data, store it, and then you need to analyze it, and then maybe you can formulate a theory or opinion about it. So like I was saying, for the vaccine, because there is a not enough data as of now, it's been kind of prepared in, usually it takes about they say about 5 to 6 years at least to develop a vaccine, but it's been done in a very short period, 1.5 years, so not much data available. But as more data comes in, so they keep, that's why you keep wondering why the government keeps changing, right? Once they say it's 4 weeks space, then they say 6 weeks, 8 weeks. So they are basically kind of improvising as the data is coming. So they're finding that this works better, so they are again changing the rules. So that's where it's basically what I'm trying to say is that healthcare documentation is useful in many ways over a long period of time. Also, there might come a time where they'll be actually be able to predict a patient what kind of a um, outcome, let's say after can be predicted, say after, like, let's say 60 years or 70 years of age, what you can expect, a person can expect based on the data itself. Anyway, so let's move on. So basically, definition wise, it's very simple. So it's basically the creation. Healthcare documentation is the creation of a digital or analog record detailing a medical treatment, medical trial, laboratory result, or clinical test. So that's pretty simple. Okay, now coming to our point of interest, which is healthcare documentation specialists, because you remember that what we're discussing here is the career opportunities, right? So basically, we are talking about healthcare documentation specialists. So they need to understand a wide range of specialized disciplines, right? Including education and basic anatomy, physiology, pathophysiology, pharmacology, different imaging tests. And one thing which is which is very important, and which we consider as the base, is that very good knowledge of English, which is essential. Unfortunately, we are still like the most of the developed nations, if you see, we still use English, right? So particularly US and UK. So English is a must. Okay. So what is the desired background? Okay, and I'm talking about general. There are different verticals that exist within the healthcare documentation system. Now, these are kind of general background which is desired. Okay, so if you are like a science diploma or graduate with biology as one of the subjects, it's a good background. Okay, because your foundation is already laid. You know what how the basic body systems work, right? A different respiratory system or cardiology, cardiac system, or you have circulatory system. So neurology, different um, aspects which you already would have studied in biology, or any other form of biology like microbiology. You have a lot of biochemistry. Those are good background subjects. Okay, if you have like a bachelor's in pharmacy, very good, because pharmacy is also widely, you will know the basic structure of how medicines are given, what is an antibiotic, what is how's a vaccine, how it's developed, how it works, how's the immune system. So there are so many different aspects that you will learn in doing when you're doing these courses in your education. Then you have a nursing course. It's very useful. Okay, if you are a nurse, you know actually what happens in within the medical system, in a, let's say, in an emergency room setting, or in a clinical setting also. Then anything with physiotherapy, you'll also know, because you study a lot of these structures, the bone structure and musculoskeletal, particularly. That knowledge is also very useful. Then if some people, they also do imaging, like you have this X-rays, MRI and stuff like that. If so, that also you have a basic foundation knowledge of the human, how the treatment is. Excuse me. Okay. So so any other course that, that basically, there are a lot of such courses which are related to medicine and medical terminology. So anything that enhances your medical terminology, human anatomy, etc., it's very useful. It doesn't mean to say that if you do not have this kind of a background, that you cannot pursue or get into healthcare. No, it's not that. But these are desired. Okay? For example, I myself, I have not done any of this. So I myself have never done any of this. Educationally, I've never done this. In fact, I was not even I did not have biology also. But then, I was good at school. Otherwise, I can still remember, what I learned in school. So that kind of knowledge, if you have, and if you've been reading about such stuff, that is adequate. But what I'm saying is, these are, desired uh, subjects. If you have this knowledge, it will really be useful. Okay. Okay. So we come to the one particular vertical, which is medical transcription. Okay. Now, what happens is, between patient and a doctor, what happens, we call it an encounter. Okay. Encounter is not like, what you hear in the movies, right? Go and shoot somebody. Not that. That is not that encounter. So technically we call it an encounter between a patient and a doctor. So it doesn't mean they are going to fight with each other. It's just that, they will be talking to each other, and, the basically consultation. Okay. Consulting. So now that needs to be documented, right? So what typically, what traditionally, what the doctor does is, he or she uh, dictates. He records his voice in a kind of, it's called a dictaphone, widely used, and that gets uploaded, okay, into the internet system. And the medical transcriptionist, that is at our end. A lot of medical transcription happens in India. Most of the US work gets outsourced. There are a lot of medical transcriptionists in the US also, but majority of it is being done right now in India. And what the medical transcriptionist does is, he or she has access to that audio, and there is a kind of a layout, or what we call template. Okay. A particular layout, for example, it has to be in different sections, like history of the patient, and there will be a physical examination perhaps, and there might be some laboratory tests. There'll be a different section, and finally, what is the diagnosis, and what is the kind of treatment. So what the medical transcriptionist basically does is, listens into the audio, and it's basically a dictation, and that is converted into a text. So it becomes a document, and that text is then relayed back to the facility. Okay. And that is stored by the medical records division. Now, initially, what used to happen, and I'm talking about like before pre-internet age, most of the doctors, it used to be in handwritten notes. They used to take these notes, and they used to be maybe in later stages, a medical transcriptionist used to type. In those olden days, the typewriter, they used to type in that whatever the doctor used to dictate, or used to write in the handwritten notes. And it used to be quite tedious, you can imagine, to store all those sheets of paper. But once one computers evolved and there was better storage, you had everything could be so stored in the software. So and internet also, it allowed all these transactions where the audio could be transported from one side of the world to the other and then transported back into a text within a few hours. Initially it used to be 24 hours. Now we even have reports turned around within an hour. Okay, so as technology evolved and it became more convenient, and storage also became became very easy. So you don't have to keep sheets and sheets of files and papers. Everything is stored digitally and in the medical record section. So all that is very organized. And also there was also need for data security, right? So that also uh, in US, by the way, they have something called HIPAA. Okay, HIPAA, which is Healthcare Insurance Portability Act. Okay, it's an act. Basically, it's like a bill, like what to say, like a triple talaq bill, right? I don't know if I'm giving the right uh, uh, analogy. Similarly, in the US, you have a bill which was passed in, I think it was 1996. They passed a bill where that ensured that anything to do with healthcare, and there people are very sensitive about divulging their information. Each person is very sensitive. They call it like they need their information to be secure. For example, I don't want people to know that I have like X disease, right? So it's my right to I can actually sue. And there have been a lot of companies that have been sued for big money just because they couldn't protect uh, patients' privacy. Okay, so that's why they passed this bill, HIPAA, and it has certain guidelines. Okay, so if you're a medical transcriptionist, typically when you sign on, you would be given a kind of a guideline, like you need to maintain certain things. For example, the information access, when you're processing a particular patient's data, obviously you will know you'll know certain things about that patient, right? What is that person's name, age, what was the disease, what was the treatment. So you need to keep that confidential. So you will be signing a confidentiality agreement, HIPAA document we call it. And in that also there are certain, for example, the guidelines would be like no one else uh, can actually view your computer when you're working. And I'm just giving an example. Plus, you should not be discussing it with anyone else. Okay, and so on and so forth. Okay, so it's a long list of guidelines. So anyway, let's move on. Okay, so how do you get into how do you become a medical how do you get into medical transcription? So there are various institutes. Okay, I mean, I did my medical transcription training. No, it was like almost about 20 years back. Okay, but there are a lot of companies that offer, or rather training institutes that provide training. Some of them I could collect, but you might want to check it out. Okay, if you want to get into this, you can check out some of the transcription institutes. And typically, like the training duration would be anywhere between like 4 months to a year. And some like in the US and Scribe American, even I believe they have even up to 2 years. So and some of them actually offer you some placement assistance as well. Okay, um, and but what I've experienced is that that training, it's not actually adequate for you to kind of work independently. You can still work with a company after your training. uh, Maybe you can put on a few months, and probably around about a year's experience, I think you would have had enough confidence that you could do something on your own. And I know a lot of people who actually work on their own independently also, and or they service companies, or you can even work directly with the clients. But you need to be careful because most of the clients in the US. So if you're working independently, then obviously there might be chances that you may not get paid and stuff like that. So it's better that you work when you're working independently. Also, you get hooked on with a particular company which offers jobs in medical transcription. Okay. Um, but like I said, see, technology is always evolving, right? So now what's happening is medical transcription, although it's been around for quite some time and it has evolved. Like, for example, when I started, initially everything used to get typed, right? I mean, whatever you listen to the dictation and you type every word of it. So, but over a period of time, what happened was as technology evolved, so they found that there is something called speech recognition. Okay, so the speech recognition started catching on. So there is software where it'll kind of over a period of time start recognizing the voice of the provider or the dictation, and it will give you a text, right? And over a period of time, if you keep editing that text, it will start becoming better and better, just like artificial intelligence, where the more you feed data into it, the more data it collects, and it keeps improving itself. So much so that I've seen texts which are like almost like 98% accurate. Okay, there'll be hardly any deviation from what otherwise a normal person would have typed. So it evolved so much that now I think in the recent past, if my memory goes right, I have not at least come across any medical transcriptions that is typing anymore. It's all editing only. So the speech recognition gives you a text, and that text is just that needs to be edited. That's all. So what happens is it saves us a lot of time. Imagine, like, if you have to type, let's say, a 10-minute dictation, it would go to, let's say, 3 to 4 pages, right? If you have to actually type it, imagine typing 3 to 4 full pages, and then if that comes to you instantly with a speech recognition, which hardly takes 2 minutes for it to kind of convert that into text, and then all you need to do is just edit it, which can be done in, let's say, 10 minutes. Just go through the dictation and make sure that all the commas are in place, and whatever that needs to be grammatically correct, etc. Right? So yeah, it has evolved a lot, and it is still evolving. And now the latest trend is that even medical transcription, the whole medical transcription industry is also, it's kind of now evolving, and something like medical scribing is kind of picking up. Okay, now medical scribing is slightly different from medical transcription. So like we saw here, right? In medical transcription, what is the input? Input is in the form of an audio, right? It's an audio dictation, and the highlights of the encounter between a patient and the doctor are recorded, and it's then converted to a text by the medical transcriptions. Now what happens is, for medical scribing, the input is not in the form of a dictation. Okay, it's in the form of a conversation. The conversation itself is recorded. So when the patient and doctor, they meet, it the conversation is recorded, and that serves as the input. So that's the difference between a major difference between medical transcription and scribing. Okay, I'll repeat again. So medical transcription is basically the input is in the form of a dictation, but in medical scribing, it is in the form of a conversation. So now what happens is it saves that doctor or provider that much time, because he or she doesn't have to dictate again, right? He just needs to just carry on his work. He needs to just, like I said, the encounter with the patient, he just needs to conduct the encounter and record it. That's it. And that recording is used as an input for a scriber or medical scriber to convert it into a text document. Now, um, it is uh, it is relatively a newer phenomenon, medical scribing. I would say that it's still in its infancy stage now. So actually, it's a good time to get into scribing. Okay, if you get into medical scribing now, it has a lot of potential. In the next few years, it is bound to grow. So along with the industry growth, also individuals can also grow, right? So rest of it is already there. I think most of you would have already read it. Okay, it's pretty simple there. The explanation as to what is medical scribing and what actually happens. The other advantage of or difference between scribing and transcription is, like I said, it scribing can happen real time. Real time means like whilst the encounter is on, while the doctor and patient are having a conversation, and the conversation may last for what, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, right? But actual the relevant information, it will not be the whole conversation, right? The relevant information might be just worth just maybe say 5 minutes out of that 15 minutes would be what needs to be captured by the scribe. For example, if I am, let's say I've been talking for what the last 15 minutes now. So what is relevant might be just, let's say, what if you have to summarize it, it'll be just for like 2 minutes, right? You'll take to summarize what I spoke about, right? So similarly, in a conversation, what is relevant is captured by the medical scriber, and that again is constructed into the what we call the EHR. Now, EHR is nothing but the electronic health record. Okay, so this in most cases, the the scribe has access to the EHR. EHR is where they maintain the records of patients. So what he does, that he or she does is he listens into the conversation, takes down the or extracts the relevant information, and uh, inputs that into the EHR. So that remains as a record. Okay. So I think it's now pretty clear what is medical scribing, what the role entails. Correct. Okay, so moving on. So how do you become a medical scribe? Okay, so again, there are a lot of medical scribing training institutes, and I know a few of them are there in the south of India. You have particularly I know in Bangalore and Coimbatore and even Kerala, Chennai. You have a lot of these medical scribing training institutes. You could just Google it out and you can check it out. You can actually know, you can come across a lot of training institutes. Now, what is important here is, see, if you have some kind of a background, like I mentioned earlier, it is really very useful. Okay, and in of course in any medical scribing institute, again the training is on average about 6 months. Okay, and all the specialties of orthopedics or ophthalmology, cardiology, neurology, they'll take you through the basics and give you some practice. Okay, but like I mentioned earlier, your base base knowledge of English and any kind of uh, background, biology, or like I said, any related subject knowledge would be really useful. Otherwise, that 6 months is actually not, in my experience, is not that adequate. Okay, to make you a successful scribe. But of course, if you take the course and then you spend a lot of time in it and put in effort, definitely in a year's time you can become a fairly good son. I know a lot of people who actually done that course, and with just about another 3-4 months of experience, they're doing pretty well. Okay, so yes, so there is definitely a lot of opportunity. You don't have to be disheartened if you do not have that kind of a background. You can do a lot of reading. A lot of material is available nowadays. It's the internet age. So if you're really interested into something, you can gather as much knowledge as you can, right? So definitely, but it offers a lot of potential. Not only, you don't, it's not that if you become a medical scribe today that you have to live and die as a medical scribe. So there is a lot of growth. Like I mentioned, the industry itself is growing now. It's still in the infancy stage, and along with the industry growth, um, you can become you can take on other roles. There are different designations that to manage a team, for example, a team lead or team manager. I know personally, I know many scribes, who have just from scratch. Of course, they were maybe experienced in a little bit of medical transcription, but they started, and within 3 to 4 months of starting scribing, they've become team managers in our company. Okay, and we'll talk about our company a little bit, maybe a little later. So it's an excellent opportunity for people, and of course it also allows even transcription and scribing both. They allow people to work from home. Of course, not all medical scribes, they offer, they allow people to work from home. But then I think the way after COVID, I think most of the people now, most of the companies, they're allowing people to work from home. Okay. Now, these are the topics that generally you can expect in a scribe training. Okay. So it's all which we already discussed. Okay. There is something called coding also, which we will discuss a little later. So these are some of the, and like I mentioned here, you have HIPAA, right? I mentioned you. So knowledge of HIPAA is also very essential for this kind of work. Okay. Okay. So just coming to our company, like I had mentioned earlier, that VISHWA is our company that people who work from India are employees of, and PENNHEALTH is where we operate as PENNHEALTH from the US, where we have some employees there also. So right now, currently we have live scribes, 38 live virtual scribes. They work from India, and we have 2 offices. One is in Cochin and one is in Trivandrum. Okay, and in this particular vertical, we have one team manager right now who's taking care of or managing this 38 live virtual. Now, what I mean by live virtual scribes is that they all work directly one-to-one with the provider or doctor. Okay, so typically a live scribe would be like, he'd be hooked on as soon as the the clinic or the doctor, he starts his day, and listens in. He gets hooked on through Teams with the provider, and the provider continues to see patients, and the scribe continues to simultaneously record and input the details into the EHR. So what happens is, as soon as the day ends, all the patients that were seen, their data all get input into the EHR. So everything is done. So doctor can go home and not have to dictate or spend time again doing any documentation or clerical work. Earlier, what used to happen is, and doctors are now finding it very, very useful having a scribe, was that the doctor himself used to enter details into the EHR. It used to take another 2 to 3 hours work. Now, doctors are very qualified people, and they are not, I mean, if you going to use a doctor to do clerical work, which is entering data, obviously it's a waste of time, right? It's a waste of time and resource. So doctor can focus on what he's good at, which is treating the patients, and the scribe will do what he is good at, he or she is good at, which is inputting data, collecting relevant information, and inputting data into the EHR. Okay, so now again, coming back to this scribing, live scribing is basically when it happens real time, when the doctor is seeing the patient on one side, and simultaneously the scribe on the other side of the world is inputting data into the EHR. Simple. right? Now we have something called offline scribes, where we currently have about 80 offline scribes working for Vishwa. They are all working from India and offline scribing is slightly different. What we call offline scribing, offline doesn't mean the internet has to be off. No, internet has to be on. Offline means it's not real time. Okay. So what we do is the encounter between the doctor and the patient, that gets recorded. The conversation gets recorded, and that is the access to that is given to the scribes. So it doesn't happen simultaneously. Maybe if the encounter starts at, let's say, 9 a.m., by the time the recording is available to the scribe, it may be let's say after 2 hours. So by 11 a.m. Okay. So then the scribe can start his or her work, and uh, so basically they are working on a recorded conversation, not live. But it's almost equally as effective, and the skill that is required is equally the same. Okay. And we also have onshore scribes, 18 onshore in the sense from the US, working from the US. We have 18 as of now. We're still recruiting both onshore and offshore for this particular vertical. In fact, we are recruiting for live virtual scribes also. But this for offline, the advantage from the scribe perspective here is that here you can work from home. Okay. Whereas in live virtual scribe, at the moment at the moment people are working from home because of COVID. But once this hopefully COVID should be normalized within, let's say, next 2 or 3 months, they are all expected to come back and work from an office setting. But of course, we are looking at other ways how we can make it more secure in the future, and perhaps we can allow people work from home. But at the moment, we do not have that luxury. But offline scribings, yes, you can work from home, and because we have a secure gateway, and the data is very secure and as per HIPAA guidelines. Okay. And we have one operations manager and about 5 team managers. Okay. And one is also one team manager is working from the US to manage that scribes which are working from onshore. Okay. So that is the size of our company. Apart from this, of course, Vishwa and PENNHEALTH, we have transcription also. We do about offshore, we do up to about 12 what we call lines, right? 12 lakh lines. So now one line is about 65 characters constitutes one line in transcription. We do about 12 lakh lines offshore, that is from India, and about roughly 7 lakh lines from onshore, from the US. So we have a team of, in India, we have a team of about 100 transcriptionists, and in the US we have about 40 odd transcriptionists working apart from scribing. Okay. And for scribing, we do have kind of training, but that is more like a crash course, and we usually hire only people who are already experienced medical transcriptionists or scribes who are trained scribes, like I mentioned in the earlier slides, right? Where people get trained in the get trained with some of the medical scribing institutes. We hire them provided they have a little bit of experience, and then we have our own kind of internal training, which is not very extensive. It's basically just to get them adapted. It could be like 15-20 days of training, and then we once we have an internal eligibility criteria, we assess the eligibility criteria based on our internal tests, evaluate them, and we find them to be up to that criteria. We get them hooked on with the provider. Okay. And like I mentioned, our future plan, we have a lot of plans. We intend to grow up to at least 100 live virtual scribes and 200 offline scribes by less than a year, and which is pretty realistic. We had this plan in 2021 itself, but due to obvious reasons, since the last year we've kind of got stuck. We lost like at least 3 to 4 months last year, and this month also looks like we'll be losing at least 3 months due to COVID, right? So it was a kind of setback. We never lost anything, but it was a setback to our growth plan. So we have kind of redrawn our plan, and by next year April, we are still looking strong to achieve these targets. Okay, and what we are also trying to do is we are trying to develop a kind of structured training program for freshers. Okay, but that is something which we are still debating on. We have the infrastructure, and we have the of course the knowledge base, and we have everything else, but we are just, what is preventing us is we are not sure of what is the resource pool. And when I'm talking to you, all of you are resources, right? All of you are part of the resource pool. So if we get a steady kind of resource pool, or we get more data as to like X number of people are ready to move into this industry, then definitely we can develop our own structured training program, which would kind of give us a constant supply of scribes and medical transcriptionists, maybe a constant supply, which is definitely required for our growth, right? So yeah, there are definite plans. So depending on the response to such presentations, we could definitely take that step of setting up a structured training program. Okay. Now, the other things, the other process also involves part of the healthcare documentation industry, and that is called billing and coding. Okay, of course, billing and coding, they are kind of very related processes, but they are different processes. Okay, they are separate processes, and but both are very crucial. Now, what happens is, like we discussed in the earlier slides about transcription and scribing, where we understood how we could document, right? How we could come up with a document. Now, what do you do with a document? Suppose there's a claim, right? You need to claim it, right? So for that, we have something called coding. Okay, coding. Now, coding is nothing but, let's say, depending on the diagnosis, right? Suppose if someone has, let's say, there could be a diabetes mellitus, or there could be hypertension. So let's say take that example of hypertension and diabetes. So diabetes has got a certain code, like it's like a 6-digit code. Okay, and hypertension has a different code. Now, coding involves a coder would be basically having a glossary where it's like a dictionary. Okay, so each diagnosis or disease condition will have a code. So that code needs to be captured for billing purposes. That code will be fed into another system, and that will ultimately get captured, and that's how you'll know that, okay, this person had this particular diagnosis, or and therefore the claim would be so much. Like each condition would have a different value, right? For example, if you have an injury, if you have, like, let's say, a cut somewhere or a fracture, so obviously the amount claimed for the fracture, there would be a set claim. For those of you know a little bit of how the insurance is claimed, for a fracture the claim will be different, but for a bypass surgery the claim will be totally different, right? Fracture might be like 40,000-50,000 rupees, but for a bypass it might go up to lakhs. So that's where this coding comes into play, where the coder actually codes each disease condition for billing purposes. Okay, so I think that's sufficient for you to know. So a coder, if you want to take up coding, you need to actually go through that glossary, and through experience you'll become a master. You can't be referring every time to a book, right? If you have to code in a hurry, for example, you can't expect if if you go to the court, for everything the judge or lawyer will not open the book, right, to see what is the rule law. They'll know it by heart. So that is where a good coder, over a period of time, through his experience, his or her experience, it will almost like in his mind, the glossary. So if you say hypertension, he'll say 1 2 3 4 5 6. Immediately it'll come to his mind. He will not open the book. So he'll be able to process it very fast. Okay. So that is the job of a coder. Okay, broadly speaking. And then the billing, again, it's forwarded to the billing, and the billing then the biller, what he does is he knows what is the rate. There'll be expected rate, right, for each diagnosis. So billing and coding go hand to hand. There are a lot of institutes that provide coding training. You can get trained in coding, but again, it, like I said earlier, it takes 3 to 4 years to actually experience, to master it and become to boost your market value. Your market value comes with how quickly you can process, the claims, how quickly you can code, right? Okay, so moving on. This is basically, something called ICD-10, which is the latest, and it keeps evolving, because new diseases come up, and especially cancer and all that, new findings. So the codes also, it's like a glossary, so it keeps getting updated. You know that even the Oxford Dictionary gets updated every year, right? New edition. So similarly, the what we call the ICD codes, they also keep getting updated every year. So right now, what is prevalent is ICD-10, that is in force from 2000 since 2015. ICD-11 has come in, but it's not mandatory yet to be applied as per US laws. It's only going to become mandatory from 2022, next year. So if you are getting into this, so you probably will it's wise to get trained on ICD-11. It's slightly different from ICD-10, few more additions. So just to give you an idea of how it works. Okay. So this basically again explains, the write-up here explains what is medical coding and what a medical coder does. Okay, so you can just go through it. Like I said, there are numerous institutes that offer medical coding courses. Okay. Okay, the next, I'm sure that most of you would have got enough time to go through it. Okay, so the next which comes, another vertical which comes, and please remember that when I'm talking about healthcare in the documentation, I'm talking only of one section, like we said in that earlier slide, right? There was this cycle, correct? In this cycle, we are talking about only certain sections. There are a lot of other processes also, but due to time constraints, I know with our limited this thing, what is feasible for us right now, what is majorly being done in India, and which can you can look forward to offer you offer you a career, is what I'm discussing right now. So the fourth in that same section, we discussed already medical transcription, medical scribing, and medical billing and coding, right? And the fourth one which we come is called medical summarization. Now, if you look at the cycle that which I just showed a little while ago, what I'm sometimes some claims uh, given to the insurance companies, sometimes they get rejected, right? Not all claims are upheld. It could be it could be due to an error somewhere, or there could be some mismatch. Okay, so for whatever reason, the adjudicator who gives the verdict on whether the claims needs to be upheld or rejected, if for some reason, if it is rejected, then sometimes it goes in for dispute, right? If it's a huge amount, for example, you claim that a hospital bill of, let's say, 10 lakh rupees. Now the insurance, if they suspect that there's some malpractice or something going on, they will reject it, right? But you might feel that, okay, no, it was unjustly rejected. So what will you do? You will raise a dispute. Now, who is going to listen to the suppose there's a person who has to give a verdict, right? and that person will be obviously a very highly qualified, should be a very highly qualified, right? From let's say from high court you go to Supreme Court. If high court says no, you lost the case, what will you do? You go to Supreme Court, right? From sessions court you go to high court to Supreme Court. Like that, there are Supreme Court judge is supposed to be superior to someone from in the high court with more knowledge, more whatever experience. So now that person, Supreme Court, and I'm not talking about the court right now. I'm trying to give you an analogy here. Okay, the Supreme Court person, when it comes to this in the healthcare documentation, will be someone who's very qualified, maybe a very experienced doctor. Now, if a claim comes to him, and like with so much of documentation, it could run into thousands of pages, right? Now, do you think that that person who's so qualified has got the time to actually go through that thousands of documents? No, obviously no. That person doesn't have that much time. So that person, someone has to sort all the documents of a particular patient from his childhood, what had happened, whether he fell down, whether he took tetanus shot, X, Y, Z, whatever it is. All the documents has to be, someone has to go through that, and what is relevant to the current dispute, okay, that is summarized. Okay, now that takes time. If you have to go through 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 documents and then come out with one page of summary as to XYZ, this is what is relevant, and the Supreme Court judge will just give the verdict saying, okay, based on this, yes or no, right? Now, who will do this sorting of these documents, 3,000, 4,000? That is the business. So that is again outsourced clerical work, right? So that is what is, in a nutshell, what happens in medical summarization. So there are again different levels in medical summarization. There's something called sorting. The junior people, they will only sort the data, what's relevant, and someone who's more experienced will actually see which is relevant, some bit of logic that is required. Obviously, medical knowledge is required, background, some experience. So it's a whole lot of, it's a whole different vertical which offers a lot of career opportunities for you. So that's why right now we don't have it. We have a platform, and we are looking for some kind of opportunity here in the US. We are exploring the market, and very soon we may come up with a vertical which is medical summarization. But right now, Vishwa or PENNHEALTH, we do not have this vertical. We don't have employees in this vertical. We might come up very soon because we are in similar business. It's just a question of integrating this as well, right? So I think I hope that I was able to give you a fairly a good knowledge about what are the career opportunities. These are some of the steps in medical summarization which I already explained to you. Okay, documents need to be summarized and all that, right? So maybe you can take a minute to just go through this write up. So again, the clients, maybe the way they want the summaries to be might be in different templates. That requires some kind of learning depending on the client. Okay. So, and what are the skill sets that you need? Like I said, sorting is just basic data, so the junior ones can do that. And then finally, the summarizer, who's a little bit senior, will look at the sorting errors. And then these are the basic skill sets that you need. Like English is kind of like a standard, very good English writing skills, and minimum of 6 months to 1 year as a medical transcription always helps. So basic medical knowledge, a good way to start would be to become a medical transcriptionist. And there are so many different verticals which you can take up as a career. Okay, and let's now look at what is the future. Like I said, see, automation is it always it disrupts, right? So like I mentioned earlier, initially we used to all type, right? Then it was only editing, because the speech recognition came into picture. So everyone said, oh, once speech recognition has come, so all the medical transcriptionists will lose their jobs, because there's someone who already can produce equally very good drafts. But no, medical transcriptions are still there, right? But it is important that automation will disrupt, but one needs to be adaptive, right? You need to adapt. Like I started as a medical transcriptionist. I started editing once speech recognition came. Now it's evolving into medical scribing. So we've learned that also. So it's not that you will be you lose your job or anything like that. Yeah, there might be a slight disruption, but as long as you keep your skills upgraded, you will always be needed, right? Your market value will always be there. So and healthcare profit health is now, and COVID has shown that after your basic needs like your food, shelter, and clothing is not even that. I mean, clothing you hardly spend what 1,000 rupees a year probably. Okay, I don't know. Maybe nowadays people spend 1,000 rupees a month in clothing, but after food, shelter, I think healthcare is the very next necessity now, and it is always going to be there. If you have the knowledge, if you're an expert in your field, if you have the knowledge in healthcare industry, definitely you will be always be required, and you will always have a career for you always. So it's a very good option for all you aspiring people who want to make a career out of it, and very interesting also. Okay, and you will also get a sense of pride that you're kind of being part of healthcare. It's a noble cause. It's not like you're hating somebody. It's all whether you it's very noble cause, right? Healthcare, I mean, you're helping save lives. What more can be more noble than that, right? So I know I'm a little I think over time almost consumed almost an hour. So any questions? I open the floor. If any of you have any questions, I would love to hope to answer to your satisfaction. Okay, I'll open it up.
Okay, thank you, Ram. Yeah, one question. See, if people coming from other fields, right, other than
Right.
biology, can they get into this particular field? Is there a possibility?
Definitely, absolutely. See, nowadays it's an added advantage. That's all. Being from biology is an added advantage. See, I myself, I was not a. Of course, we all studied biology in school, but apart from that, I don't have any background. I came into medical transcription blindly. I had no background, so I myself am an example. So, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
See, it's my belief, and it's not only about this industry. It's my belief that if you really are interested in something and you're really passionate about something, you will definitely acquire the knowledge that is necessary to excel in that particular field. This is my, it's my theory, and probably I'm in my experience also. So there is no doubt that it's not rocket science. So anyone can get into this.
Okay. And in terms of salary, you mentioned some four or five different
Verticals.
categories. Yeah,
Yeah,
verticals.
yeah.
So, current trend, in terms of salary, which one, I mean, like what is approximate pay?
So of course it depends upon the experience that one gets. See, the basic of course training is there, but um, if you're a beginner, like let's say junior, let's say scribe, okay, medical scribe or coder, if you're a beginner, around about 25,000 is what you can expect, either as a stipend or as a salary. And of course, as you become expert, if you keep doing things again over and over again, you become an expert in it. You develop your seniority. You get 1 year scribing experience. Your value goes up. 2 years goes up even further. I know people who right now all are, in fact, our team managers. All our team manager examples. Like I mentioned to you, the team manager that is managing our live scribing, right? He's got about 2.5 years experience in scribing. So I mean, easily you can earn like a 70 plus if you have 3 years experience, 75,000 you can earn. So of course you'll have to keep, like I keep saying, you have to upgrade your skills. Not all scribes will become team managers. Again, you need to develop skill sets for that. You need to be passionate about your work, and people should accept your experience, and you should show in your work. Definitely, it'll be only going one way, which is up. I hope I answered your question, Ashraf.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And
Great.
in terms of how do you actually measure one's productivity in this particular?
Good question. So we have our own metrics. Like it could be like, for example, in transcription, I mentioned line, right? A line in considered to be 65 characters. 65 characters constitute a line. So 65 characters means not counting the spaces. When you type, you say, maybe you could type Ashraf. So ASHRAF, how much was that? 5, right? So that's 5 characters. So if you type 65 characters, that constitutes a line. So we basically measure it in terms of lines. So typically, a fairly experienced medical transcriptionist should be able to produce on an average like 1,200 lines in an 8-hour shift. Okay, so 1,200 lines, and the base rate that he or she is paid is around about 1 rupee on an average. I'm just giving an average, 1 rupee to 1 rupee 20 or 30 paise per line. Okay, so if you are a good transcriptionist, you are able to type, let's say, 1,000 plus lines accurately, then easily per day you can earn that much, right? 1,000, if you calculate 1.2 in multiplied by 1,000, will give you 1,200. So 1,200 rupees per day you can earn. It's a simple thumb of rule. 1,000 lines you process, you can earn 1,200 rupees per day. So if you take it as 20 working days, you can just do your math, right? 20 into whatever, and that will be your income.
Okay.
So that's with regard to medical transcription. Similarly, for scribing, it is considered charts. Okay, and like I said, see, scribing is still, it's in infancy stage, so we are still trying to figure out what is the best metric. How it can be measured, which is fair. Right now, what we're using is charts per hour. Okay, how many charts you can process per hour? But then again, there are a lot of questions like one particular conversation might be 10 minutes. Okay, another conversation might be 15 minutes. But the time that is spent for a person who's doing a 10-minute conversation versus 15-minute conversation, the time taken would be different, right? So how do you, but it'll be counted as just one chart, right? So how do you become more kind of equitable? How do you make it more fair, okay, or more level playing field? So a lot of debate is still going on. Someone said that, okay, let's make it number of minutes. So it's still evolving, but right now we go by number of charts, and sometimes we give a little bit of leeway depending upon if a particular provider has got very long charts or something like. But in case of live scribing, what happens is you are mapped one-to-one with the provider. So whether the provider is giving you 10 charts or 20 charts, it's your job. So whole shift you have to finish those many charts, whatever the depending on number of patients, right? So yeah, the good question. But similarly, coding also, it involves number of charts, how many you are able to process, or the number of codes that you've done in a day. So there is a track for that. There is a way that is recorded also.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anybody else? Any questions?
I'm not sure how many people do we have here.
We
On
had
this.
around 32 earlier. Now it's 20.
Okay.
But we are recording this. We have around
Okay.
200 members will be able to hear.
Okay.
And one other thing, if somebody wanted to get into training, right? See, your company is not giving training right now, right? Or
We are training not freshers as of now, but like I said, see, it's scribing. We are actively considering starting training. It entirely depends upon the resource pool. So there are so many things that we need to keep in mind, right, while we are doing training. So it's still in process. I can say it's work in progress.
Okay.
So we might come up very soon with our own internal training.
Okay. So in fact, I floated some of the registration, for the interesting people. So I got around 56 to 60 people, and then out of that, around 10 to 15 are from biology backgrounds.
Oh, great.
Others are from other backgrounds. So,
Right.
they will be naturally they will be asking what is next, whether there is
Yes,
any.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. See, what I would suggest for someone like who's just got a Bali, start reading up. I believe that, of course, I'm not very sure of what is the up to date. There might be a lot of online courses available. So you just look at that, consider the reviews, and take up maybe a course or something. It will give you. I'm not sure how effective it will be, but you can try that out. Once you gather adequate skills, we do some practice mock sessions, and then maybe if you can connect with me, we could try it out. You know, I'm always open to kind of trying something new. We have never done it. We have only mostly we have hired people with experience, but I am willing to give it a shot. Okay. So my contact number is in. That's why I opened this slide up again. It's not to display my pic. It's just to show my contact number. It's here. If someone is really interested, you can get in touch with me. This is also my WhatsApp number, and we could definitely um, go case by case. I'm sure that some individuals might be having different questions, or they might have unique backgrounds. So
Okay. So anybody else? Any any questions? I think we little bit overshoot, but that's very informative session, and you covered most of the items, right? At least in a high level. So
yeah, see, I know it's about when you talk about generally you talk about healthcare. It's a very like I said, I tried to cover as much as I could and what is relevant, but it's a very vast kind of industry. So it has many other processes and activities that go on. And interestingly, just to let you know, like no, I miss basically all our clients in the US, but I believe that in medical transcription, off late, it's also picking up in other countries, like for example, Canada, UK, Australia. It's also picking up because people are more and more they're realizing that the importance of healthcare documentation, like I outlined earlier. Even in India, I think now people are the concept of research was actually kind of not that much, but now with COVID and all that, people are realizing the importance of data and how it can be analyzed and used in the clinical research also. So it might in the future come up in India big way also.
yes, and in insurance, this blockchain and
Yes,
these
yes,
things
yes,
are coming up. So
definitely, yeah.
okay, so I think we don't have any more.
Yeah.
Any more questions? So
Okay, great. So, thank you all, for patiently listening. I know it's difficult to, sit and listen to someone, in a kind of boring monotone. So, I hope that, this would be useful at some point in your careers, and hopefully at some point in time we'll get a chance to associate and take this further.
yeah,
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
definitely. Thank you,
Bye bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Let me adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.